Salam.
Hello, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Oh. So the third year, I think you need to switch off one of the your Zoom because it's having. I think you open to device.
Yes. Yes.
First, may I know how to share screen? Okay, now I can share screen here. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Boleh. Okay, what about now, doctor? My voice is okay? No?
Okay, now clear.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Good morning, everybody. In this guest lecture today, we have a guest lecture in the subject of international finance with our outstanding speaker, Dr. Nurmizan Bakar. Okay, Dr. Nurmizan Bakar will will deliver the topic of foreign exchange rate in the short run. As we know that Dr. Nurmizan Bakar is the lecturer in University Utara Malaysia. Yeah, and he was very keen on international trade and international finance, doctor. Yeah. And what is the school of your economic and business department, doctor?
School of Economics, Finance and Banking.
Yes, School of Economics and Finance. Okay, without any further delay, you have 1 hour to deliver your topic, and then there will be a Q&A. Please, student, raise the question. You can write down your question in the chat box, or you can open your microphone and pose and question directly to the Dr. Nurmizan Bakar. Okay, without any further delay, the time is yours.
Okay, so thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And selamat pagi, very good morning. So alhamdulillah rabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa bisalli sadri wa yassir amri wa la udatan min lisani qawli Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa sayyidina Muhammad. So thank you, Dr. Dia, for inviting me to give this lecture. And I think this is a third semester of our collaboration, I think. And thank you to our students too for joining our class today. So I think some of students are from UMY and my student from University Utara Malaysia here. And actually this is a lecture of the international financings. Okay, and the most of my students are the third and fourth semesters. And then to begin my lecture, I like to use the whiteboard. So now I would like to share screen. Okay. So can you watch this screen? Okay.
Yes, doctor.
Okay, thank you. So this is the textbook that we use here. Okay, this is the textbook. Why I show the textbook? Because you need to refer to this textbook for a detail about the contents or the topic that I'm going to deliver today. Okay, so this is a book by Krugman of St. Edmunds, very famous textbook in international economics. Okay. And this is about the financial sector or the topic of the international finance. Actually, Krugman and his friend also published a book with its title International Trade, where it's focused on the trade parts or export and import in international economics. Okay, so you may find this book later on for your further review. All right, so now I'm going to deliver a topic from chapter 4. Okay, from chapter 4, it's about the money, interest rate, and exchange rate. Okay, money, interest rate, and exchange rate, where we are going to see how money supply affect the exchange rate. Okay, so we are going to see how the money supply affect the exchange rate. Okay. So you need to flip on chapter 4 in this textbook. So usually my lecture even in Malay and English, so I would like to give today's lecture, also in English and Malay. So here is the ini textbook yang kita guna by Krugman dan kawan-kawan ya. Buku yang sangat popular dalam bidang international economic ini. Sebabnya Krugman ini memang popular dalam bidang international economic lah. Okay. For those study international economic, kita kena tahu Krugman lah lebih kurang pada zaman sekarang ni. Okay, by the way, kita akan lihat chapter 4. Chapter 4, bab yang keempat, iaitu tentang wang, kadar faedah dan juga kadar tukaran. Where kita akan tengok bagaimana penawaran wang memberi kesan kepada exchange rate. Okay. Macam mana penawaran wang memberi kesan kepada exchange rate. So itu yang kita akan perhatikan. And then our topic today is about the money supply. Okay. The money supply and the exchange rate in the short run. So this is the topic that we are going to discuss today. Okay, not all parts in chapter 4, but today we are going to focus this part. Okay, there is in the short run how money supply affects the exchange rate in the short run. Okay. Short run refer to the situations or assumptions that price is constant. Okay? Price is constant, and also the output is constant. So when price and output are constant, we say that it's in the short run. Okay. So why we have the short run? Because we have the long run. So long run, easily we can imagines that when price and output variable or change. Okay, so the increase and decrease of price, when we start that point of view, we call it as in the long run. Actually, in this textbook or in this topic or in this chapter, we'll also explains about the long run, but the complete explanations about the long run will be given in our next chapter. So next lecture, we are going to discuss about the long run of the ER. All right. So now, today, we are going to see how the money supply affects the exchange rate in the short run. Right? So the conclusion or what is the main point of our discussions today, okay, or the selling point or the most important point that you need to remember in this discussion or this lecture is that when the money supply increase, exchange rate will decrease. Okay, or when the money supply decrease, the exchange rate will appreciate. So this is the conclusions of this theory of our lecture today. Okay. So now, meaning that what we are going to discuss right now is how to show that when money supply change, the exchange rate will change, and then how that money supply to change affect the ER. So we are going to see the mechanism behind this conclusion or behind this theory. Okay. So let's meet it in Malay a bit. So apa yang kita nak bincangkan hari ini adalah macam mana money supply memberi kesan ER ke atas exchange rate dalam jangka masa pendek. Jangka masa pendek ini dalam bahasa Inggeris kita panggil the short run. Short run. So short run ini merujuk kepada andaian ataupun keadaan apabila harga tidak berubah. Okay, apabila harga tidak berubah ataupun output tidak berubah. Harga dan output tidak berubah. Okay. So ekonomi kita bahagikan long run dan short run begitu. Sebabnya kesan dia berbeza di antara bila harga berubah dengan harga tidak berubah. Yeah. So kita biasa tengok kan dalam mikroekonomi pun kita belajar short run dan long run. Yeah. Alright, baik. So the point yang kita akan faham daripada chapter ni adalah bagaimana money supply memberi kesan kepada exchange rate, iaitu kita akan tahu bahawa bila money supply meningkat akan menyebabkan exchange rate jatuh. Ataupun dengan kata lain, bila money supply jatuh, exchange rate akan meningkat. Ini conclusion utama yang kita nak perhatikan hari ini, dan ini point yang perlu kamu ingat. Okay. So discussion kita hari ini adalah kita nak tunjukkan secara teori bagaimana mekanisme ini berlaku. Okay, bagaimana mekanisme ini berlaku. So why we study this point? Why? Okay, there's a lot of reasons, but one of the main example or situations that can give you an idea why we need to know these theories, that as what we are seeing in this moment, where when the hiking of the price of the inflations that all countries of the world are facing right now. And that inflations mainly caused by the expansionary policy that all countries had taken during the pandemic. Okay. So during the pandemic, this what we call it as the expansionary policy, where governments if the financial sectors, then a lot of money is in the market, and because of that inflations happens, and then it affects the exchange rate. So that is the situation that we are facing right now. Okay, so in order to understand why it happens and to understand the policy that government need to be taken to solve that problem, we need to understand this simple theory that we are going to discuss right now. Okay, so kalau kita nak menjawab kenapa kita nak belajar ni, kenapa kita nak belajar, banyak reason dia, tapi lebih kurang pada masa sekarang apa yang kita perhatikan, seluruh dunia menghadapi inflasi. Dan kenapa inflasi ini berlaku? Salah satu faktornya adalah kerana sewaktu pandemik hari itu, kerajaan apa yang kita panggil sebagai polisi pengembangan, polisi pengembangan ekonomi, iaitu mudahnya kerajaan masukkan duit yang banyak ke pasaran. So, bila banyak duit di dalam pasaran menyebabkan berlaku inflasi, dan disebabkan itu juga menyebabkan salah satunya perubahan dalam IR. Okay, bila duit banyak di pasaran, exchange rate pun berubah, kadar tukaran pun berubah. Okay, so untuk kita memahami keadaan tersebut, dan kita nak memahami kenapa kerajaan terpaksa buat pula beberapa polisi untuk menghadapi inflasi ini, so kita basicnya kita kena faham teori yang kita akan belajar pada hari ini. Okay. So there is the points that we need to know before we go to the main point that we are going to discuss today. So now, in order to see the effects of money to the exchange rate, we need to know two to basic setting. Okay? So the first one, so we call it as the interest parity condition. Interest parity condition. Actually, this topic we have discussed last couple of weeks in chapter 3. Okay? So today I would like to review this point briefly in order to make sure that you understand the point that we are going to discuss later on. Okay, so interest parity conditions. Interest parity condition tell us that exchange rate is in equilibrium when the rate of returns between two countries are similar. Okay, so this can be simplified using this simple formula. This is the interest rate in US. Okay, so let's me put in more precise writing. So R USD. Okay, there is interest rate in US. So why I use US dollar and euro when explaining this point is that because in our textbook it use the exchange rate between US dollar and euro. Okay, so by using the similar example, you can easily review this point. All right. So the interest rate in US equal to interest rate in a euro. Okay, there is plus the change of exchange rate. So this is the simple formula to show the interest parity condition. It shows that, or in other words, we can say that ROR, rate of return in US, equal to rate of return in the euro, okay? In the European country, okay? Or let's say EU, not euro. Okay. So that is the point of interest parity condition. It shows that equilibrium of exchange rate happen when the rate of return on the deposit in US equal to rate of return on deposit in euro. Okay. So in our example, we assume that those asset is the deposit. So you deposit US equal to deposit in euro in EU. So that is the point. So here is the first questions that we need to know in order to see the effects of money supply to exchange rate. So first, we need to know the relations between interest rate and exchange rate. So these equations tell to us the relations between interest rate, let's me put IR, and the exchange rate, DER. Okay. Okay, so from this equation, we can draw a figure that shows the relations between exchange rate and the rate of return. Okay, rate of return. So rate of return in dollar term. Okay, in dollar term, let me write it clearly. In dollar Okay. So this figure represents what we have here. We have in these equations. Okay. So in this question, there are 3 points or 3 variables or 3 factors that we need to know that affect the rate of return. There is the interest rate of America, or interest in deposit in dollar, and interest rate deposit in euro. Okay. And the expected exchange rate, there is the exchange rate in the future and the current exchange rate. Okay, so that is the 3 points that affect the rate of return and turn out to affect the exchange rate. Yeah. So we can draw the curve that represent the expected return on euro deposit. Okay, so expected return on euro deposit is this part. Okay, so it depends on the exchange rate, and in this diagram we just use illustrate the current exchange rate or the spot exchange rate, not the expected exchange rate. So from this diagram, we know that as the exchange rate, or in this case, there is exchange rate between the USD per euro. Thus, as the exchange rate or the dollar increase, okay, so dollar increase or dollar appreciation. So as dollar increase, current what we call it, current exchange rate, okay, increase, then expected return of the euro become larger. Okay, so that's the way we read this point. Okay, so now we can draw this equilibrium point here. There is written on dollar deposit, return on dollar deposit. Okay, so the crossing point here, the intersections between return dollar on dollar deposit and expected return on euro deposit, okay, intersect in this point. So this is the equilibrium point of exchange rate. Okay. Why? Based on the idea of interest parity condition. Okay. So exchange rate will be equilibrium when rate of return between two deposits equalize. So this is the point. So this is the point where the exchange rate determined. So this interest parity show to us the relations between interest rate and exchange rate. Yeah. So for simplifying our to simplify our discussions here, we just say this is the interest rate of deposit. Okay, actually we can set for any kind of assets. Okay, any kind of set that using the interest rate as the rate of return. Okay, so now let me put this point in Malay a bit. Jadi untuk asas kepada perbincangan kita, kesan money supply ke atas exchange rate, kita kena tahu dulu topik apa yang dipanggil sebagai dalam bahasa kita boleh sebut dia sebagai syarat. Okay, saya tak pasti dalam bahasa Indonesia bagaimana, tapi dalam bahasa Melayu kita panggil syarat pariti kadar faedah. Okay. Kadar faedah. Ya. So apa yang dicerita dengan syarat pariti kadar faedah ini adalah apabila pulangan daripada deposit kedua-dua negara adalah sama, jadi waktu itu exchange rate itulah yang berada dalam keseimbangan. Okay. Idea dia begini, kalau deposit di sebuah negara, pulangan dia sama dengan deposit sebuah negara yang lain, jadi waktu itu exchange rate berada dalam keseimbangan. Sebabnya kalau pulangan dia tak sama, akan berlaku pergerakan mata wang ke negara lain dengan tujuan untuk mendapatkan keuntungan daripada perbezaan rate of return. Itu idea. Yeah. So, ini digambarkan dengan mudah dengan equation ni lah. Okay. Equation ni menunjukkan kepada kita bahawa rate of return bagi pelaburan deposit di US dan juga deposit di Euro. Kenapa kita cerita tentang US dan Euro? Sebab dalam buku teks kita, dia cerita dalam USD dan juga Euro. Jadi nanti kamu senang nak buat review. So equation ini tunjukkan kepada kita return di US dan juga return di Euro. Okay. Jadi idea dia adalah rate of return dia sama antara kedua-dua negara. Itulah kita panggil dia sebagai syarat pariti faedah. Okey. Untuk mudahkan perbincangan kita ni, kita andaikan bahawa deposit ini aset yang kita bincangkan adalah deposit. Sebenarnya kita boleh saja bincangkan dalam konteks aset yang lain, tapi untuk mudahkan perbincangan kita. Baik. Daripada equation yang kita lihat ini, kita dapat terbitkan satu ilustrasi untuk menunjukkan hubungan antara exchange rate dan juga rate of return. Okay. Dan ingat, dalam analisis kita ini kita fokus kepada current exchange rate. Okay, current exchange rate, bukan expected exchange rate. There is expected exchange rate pada masa depan, kadar tukaran pada masa depan. No, kita tengok yang kadar tukaran semasa ini. Sebab di sini dia cuma, poin yang penting di sini adalah perbezaan antara expected dengan yang current. Okay, baik. So ilustrasi ini ditunjukkan di vertical ni, kita ada current exchange rate. Okay. Ataupun dalam bahasa Melayu di Malaysia kita guna kadar semasa, ataupun sekarang ni dia menggunakan perkataan untuk current exchange rate ni. Current exchange rate itu sebagai kadar learning. Okay. Ataupun mungkin pernah dengar kadar semasa. Okay. Alright. So yang di vertikal ini kadar semasa, yang di horizontal ini, di sini ini adalah rate of return. Okay. Dalam dollar term. Okay. Dan dalam dollar term ni, kalau yang di US inilah. Okay. Kalau yang di Euro, apa yang kita laburkan di Euro, rate of return dia mesti dikira dengan perubahan exchange rate. Itu idea dia. Okay. So yang kita dapat daripada deposit daripada Euro digambarkan dengan tu kelok ni. Baik. So kelok ini tunjukkan kepada kita apabila exchange rate ke bawah. Dalam kes ini dia menunjukkan bahawa dolar semakin meningkat. Okay, dolar semakin meningkat. Nilai dia kecil kan, tapi dolar semakin meningkat kerana kita membandingkan antara US dollar per dengan euro. Okay. So now ini expected exchange rate, dan kita boleh gambarkan return daripada dolar ini dalam bentuk paksi. Okay. So interchange antara expected dengan expected dalam euro deposit dan juga dalam dollar deposit, ini menunjukkan keseimbangan. Keseimbangan apa? Keseimbangan exchange rate ataupun exchange rate ditetapkan apabila rate of return antara dua negara ni sama. Okay. Dua negara ni sama. Alright. So that is the point yang ditunjukkan interest parity condition. Okay, interest parity condition. Baik. So now we need to know one more point before we go to see the effects of money supply to the exchange rate. Okay, the second point that we need to know is the interest rate and money supply. Interest rate and the money supply. So we assume that there is demand of money. Okay, demand of money. Or we can say the aggregate demand of money. So demand of money can be easily illustrated by this equation. MD P times L, that is liquidity holding, that's depend on a function of R, that is interest rate, and the Y, that is output or GNP. All right. So this is demand of money, and we can rearrange this equation to show the real aggregate demand of money by this simple illustration. Okay, so these are the questions that show the real aggregate demand of money. Okay. So now, from these equations, we can illustrate the relations between R, or the interest rate, and the money supply, or in this case money demand, MD. Okay, so here R and here this MD, or money that people want to hold. Okay. So this can be shown as here. There is this illustration tell us that when interest rate down, then the money that people want to hold, or the liquidity of money, increase. Yeah. Why? Because people assumes that they are better to hold the money. But if the interest rate rise, so let me use the color. So if interest rate rise and then the money demand decrease, because people want not to hold the money because they can earn the interest rate by deposits their money. So there's less demand of money when the interest rate rise. So this is the illustrations that show the relations between money demand and the interest rate. Or simply we can say that we know that when the interest rate go down, and then the liquidity or the MD rise. And otherwise, that is when the interest rate high, then the money demand will be low. So this is the relations between MD and the interest rate. All right. So, and we know that money supply must be equal to money demand in the equilibrium point. So money supply, that is, can be illustrated as MF equal to the money demand. Okay, equal to the money demand. Right? So we can use the similar illustration here. We use this illustration, similar illustration, to show the relations between to money supply and money demand. Okay, because money supply equal to the money demand. So it shows the real money that people want to hold. Okay, real money that people want to hold. Okay, or real money holding. So let's say this is the equilibrium point here. There is the amount that government supply the money. So there is MS per P. MF per P is the real money holding. So this is the equilibrium point between the money supply and the liquidity. So it's determine the exchange rate here. So let's say this is the point of equilibrium. So this illustration shows to us that money supply set the interest rate, or money supply affect the interest rate. All right. So this is the illustration so that we need to understand, or the relationship we need to understand between money and interest rate. Okay. The previous, or the point that we have discussed here, this relation between interest rate and exchange rate. But at this point, we discuss about the money and interest rate. The money and interest rate. So let me put a bit the explanation in Malay. Okay, the second point yang perlu kita faham untuk memahami topik yang kita nak bincangkan, iaitu kesan money supply kepada exchange rate, adalah money demand itu sendiri. Kesan penawaran wang, permintaan wang ke atas interest rate. Okay. So kita simplify. Okay, kita simplify. Ada sukat untuk menerangkan ini, apa yang kita panggil dia sebagai aggregate money demand. Okay. Permintaan, dalam bahasa kita panggil permintaan wang aggregate. Permintaan wang aggregate. Okay. So permintaan wang aggregate ini boleh disimplifikan dengan equation ini. Okay, there is berapa banyak permintaan berlaku adalah P, price level, times dengan liquidity. Okay. So P time liquidity, and liquidity ini berfungsi ke atas interest rate and output. Okay. Baik. So daripada equation ini kita boleh rearrange dia untuk mendapatkan real money demand. That is bila kita bahagikan dia dengan price. Okay. Bahagikan dengan price level. So equation ini menunjukkan kepada kita relation antara money demand dan juga interest rate. Dan ini boleh digambarkan untuk kita dapat situation yang mudah kita faham, hubungan antara interest rate, kadar faedah, dengan money demand, dengan money yang kita nak pegang. Okay. So money kita nak pegang ini digambarkan dengan liquidity yang berhubungan ataupun berfungsi kepada interest rate dan juga output. That is, hubungan ini menceritakan kepada kita bahawa apabila interest rate jatuh, interest rate rendah, liquidity bertambah ataupun demand bertambah. Idea dia sebab bila interest rate rendah, Okay, kos untuk memegang. Dia panggil kos untuk memegang. Kalau kita belajar dalam money tu, detail macam tu. Untuk nak mudah kita faham, lebih baik kita pegang duit lah daripada kita depositkan duit tersebut. Okay. Sebab apa? Sebab dia punya interest rate rendah. Okay, semudah kita faham macam tu. Tapi kalau interest rate tinggi, kita dapati lebih baiklah kita menyimpan. Sebabnya apa? Sebabnya kita dapat pulangan, ataupun dengan kata lain sebenarnya kalau kita bincang tentang money, dia panggil kos memegang. Okay, so ini yang kita gambarkan hubungan antara interest rate dan juga liquidity. Ataupun kita boleh simplify begini, bila interest rate jatuh, MD akan bertambah. Bila interest rate meningkat, MD akan berkurang. Okay, itu yang berlaku dalam pasaran wang. Okay. And then kita tahu bahawa money supply mesti equal dengan money demand. Okay. So kerajaan, bank negara menawarkan wang. Okay, kita panggil dalam bahasa ni sebagai penawaran wang. Penawaran wang. See, penawaran wang ini berada dalam equilibrium apabila sama dengan money demand. So daripada itu kita tahulah MF ini sama dengan MD. Okay, sama dengan apa tadi? P times L lah. Okay. So untuk real money demand, MS per P sama dengan L. Samalah hubungan yang kita kata tadi. So itu boleh digambarkan semula dalam ilustrasi yang atas tu seperti ini. Okay. Jadi apabila kerajaan menetapkan money supply itu, dia akan menetapkan interest rate. Okay. Interest rate bergerak dengan money supply. So bila money supply bertambah contohnya, okay, akan semakin rendahlah interest rate. Okay, bila money supply berkurang contohnya, and then meningkatlah interest rate. Itu yang kita faham. Okay, so that is the point. So now we come to the conclusions, or we come to the point to show the relations between money to the exchange rate. To the exchange rate. Okay, ER for the exchange rate. Exchange rate. There is foreign exchange rate. So how we illustrate, or how the money affects the exchange rate, is that by combining these two illustrations. Okay, so we combine illustration that show exchange rate and we call it interest rate, and the interest rate and the real money holding. Okay, so we can show this illustration E and rate of return as we show or as we illustrate in the previous part. So dollar term, there is, we have this figure or this to curve. There is curve of expected return on euro deposit. Okay. And then here on the bottom, we can write the US real money holding. Okay. So it shows the US real money holding or the liquidity, and the liquidity that you have seen in the previous part. Okay. So let's say this is the money supplies in US. So MUS and the price of US. So it's determine the interest rate. Okay. So here the equilibrium interest rate, and here is the equilibrium exchange rate. Okay. So that is how the money supply affect the exchange rate. Thus, money supply affect the exchange rate by determining the interest rate. So we can see that money supply affect the interest rate, and then that affect the exchange rate. Okay, so this is the simple illustrations how the money supply affect the exchange rate. Okay, it's come from the idea that if the relations between interest rate in a country and the relations between money supply and interest rate in that country. In this case, we show the money supply in US and then the exchange rate of US and the euro. Okay, so returns on dollar deposits. Okay, and here is the point where the MD equal to the MS in the US. Okay, in the US. You may refer to our textbook later on for a clear illustrations for this point. Okay, so let's me put a bit this explanation in Malay. Alright, so now dengan dua ilustrasi yang kita lihat di atas, iaitu hubungan antara exchange rate dan interest rate, dan hubungan antara interest rate and then money supply. So kita nak gambarkan di sini hubungan antara money supply dengan exchange rate. So, kita nak perhatikan macam mana money supply memberi kesan kepada exchange rate. Okay, so untuk menunjukkan itu kita menggunakan idea apa? Iaitu idea yang kita lihat hubungan antara exchange rate dan juga rate of return tadi, dan juga hubungan antara rate of return ataupun interest rate dengan money supply. Okay, so dalam kes ini kita ambil di US ya, apabila US menetapkan dia punya money supply and then it's determine dia punya interest rate. Okay, determine dia punya interest rate. So interest rate itu memberi kesan kepada rate of return dia dan memberi kesan ataupun menentukan dia punya exchange rate di sini. Okay, so ini exchange rate dia. So itu the way dengan simple kita faham hubungan antara money supply dan juga exchange rate. Okay. Dapat tak? Dapat kan? Okay. So that's the way. So kita dapati bahawa kalau kita ringkaskan lagi, yang atas ni menunjukkan kepada apa yang kita katakan tadi, interest parity. Interest parity iaitu equilibrium dalam exchange rate dan juga equilibrium dalam money supply. Okay. So part ini kita boleh katakan ini adalah dia punya part kepada apa ya, pasaran forex, exchange rate market, and here is the money market. Yeah. So itu yang hubungan antara money market and then forex market. Tunjukkan dalam ilustrasi ini datang daripada apa? Daripada illustration ataupun equation yang kita lihat sebelum ini. Okay. Di sini equation interest parity, there is R in US, R euro, plus the exchange rate differentiations. Okay. Saya just buat macam ni and then di sini kita tunjukkan money supply, there is MS equal to MD. Right. So now this is the main point that we need to understand in this part. Okay. So now let's take two examples. Okay. In the way to better understanding of these illustrations or this idea is that, let's say what happened when the US money supply increase. So when the US increase their money supply, to show this point, let's say US increase its money supply to this point, okay, and supply in US, but the price unchanged. So what happened now is that here is the money supply. So the money supply intersect at this point, so it determines a new equilibrium to what we call it, the interest rate. So with this new interest rate, then it determines a new point of exchange rate. Okay. So what we can see here is that when the money supply of US increase, then the exchange rate decrease. Okay. So why this exchange rate decrease? Because it shows that when money supply increase, IR decrease, and then the exchange rate will decrease. So this is the mechanisms how money supply affect the exchange rate in the short run. We call it in the short run because we assume that P is unchanged, and the price level is unchanged. So that is what happened when, in this case, US increase their money supply. And this illustration is for the exchange rate between USD and Euro. So we come with that conclusions. So now, let me explain this point in Malay a bit. So now, sekarang kita perhatikan ataupun kita katakan apabila Amerika dalam kes ini meningkatkan dia punya money supply, apa yang berlaku? Okay. Ini ditunjukkan dengan ilustrasi ini, iaitu pertambahan dalam money supply di US. So apabila money supply di US bertambah, kita dapati bahawa dia punya liquidity dia bersilang di sini. Okay. Ini menunjukkan bahawa rate of return dia ataupun interest rate dia jatuh ke sini. So itu menyebabkan exchange rate equilibrium dekat sini, dan ini dia punya point equilibrium menunjukkan hubungan ini, iaitu bila money supply meningkat, exchange rate jatuh. Kenapa berlaku begitu? Kerana apabila money supply meningkat, exchange interest rate terjatuh, kadar faedah jatuh dan menyebabkan exchange rate tu jatuh. Okay, so itu hubungan antara money supply dengan exchange rate. So secara teorinya kita dapat hubungan tersebut. Okay. So now let's we go for the second point here. The second point here is the case when let's say Euro increase their money supply. Okay, Euro increase their money supply. So we know as Euro increase their money supply, what happened to their to return of deposit is that can be illustrated by describing or illustrate this new curve of expected return of euro dollar. So this is a new curve of expected return of euro deposit. Why we have the new point here where it shifts to the left to show that when euro or when EU increase their money supply, okay, what happened to their interest rate is that their interest rate, their IR of euro decrease. Okay, when EU, let's me write it clearly. Okay, so when euro, MS euro in this EU increase, so the IR interest rate of EU decrease, then because of that, the expected return on euro deposit also decrease. Okay, so that's why we have this new curve here. And because of that, when the expected return on euro deposit decrease, what happened now, people want to have more deposits on dollar. So what happens now is that people want more dollar, and we will have a new point of equilibrium here that show the increase of exchange rate between US and Euro. Okay, so what happened now, we have the exchange rate of US per dollar between dollar per euro increase. Okay, so this can be illustrated by this point, a new equilibrium point here. Okay, and one more point that is interesting when we see the second case here, where EU increase the money supply, is that it will not affect the equilibrium point of money supply in US. It just affect the exchange rate, but not the money supply. Okay. Because money supply in US depend on their domestic liquidity or the money demand. So this is a simple illustration of how the money supply in other countries, in this case, in the short run, affect the exchange rate of the two countries. So let me put the explanation of second point as in Malay a bit. Okay, second case yang kita nak perhatikan adalah apa akan terjadi apabila negara EU atau negara Eropah atau negara Euro ini meningkatkan di mana money supply. Okay, apabila EU meningkatkan money supply, kita akan dapati kalau expected return on euro deposit ni akan beranjak ke sebelah kiri, menunjukkan pengurangan dalam dia punya return. Kenapa begitu? Kerana interest rate dia akan jatuh disebabkan money supply dia meningkat. Banyak duit menyebabkan R jatuh. Okay. So now disebabkan itu, apa yang berlaku, kita dapati exchange rate antara US dollar dengan euro akan meningkat. Okay. So kita dapati ini hubungan dia apabila money supply euro meningkat, menyebabkan exchange rate US meningkat, menyebabkan dolar semakin meningkat. Itu poin yang kita dapat perhatikan. Okay, bila interest rate dia jatuh. Maksudnya kalau sebaliknya, kalau interest rate meningkat and then exchange rate pula akan jatuh. Interest rate di euro. Okay, sebab apa? Bila interest rate mereka meningkat, maksudnya expected return on dia punya deposit juga akan meningkat. Itu dia punya point. And the second point yang kita dapat perhatikan adalah, iaitu apabila EU meningkatkan dia punya money supply, dia tidak akan mengubah money supply di US. Okay. Jadi equilibrium to rate of return ataupun interest rate di US tidak berubah dengan perubahan apa yang berlaku di EU, but dia akan mengubahkan dia punya exchange rate. Okay. Itu dia punya point yang kita perhatikan di sini. So by looking at these illustrations, by looking to this theory, okay, there is asset approach and the monetary approach, we now understand, or we know the point that I told you, this conclusion: money supply and the exchange rate. Okay, and then we know why governments all over the world now seeking a new policy or apply the policy to maintain or to what we call it, to solve the problem of the inflations. Okay, why? Because these effects of money supply to exchange rate. Okay. Next sector, we are going to discuss in detail about the long run. There is the effects of change in price level and the exchange rate. But at this moment, we have the idea how the money supply affect the exchange rate. So daripada ilustrasi kita itu tadi, kita dah faham bagaimana money supply memberi kesan kepada exchange rate. Yang saya kata awal tadi, apabila kita dah belajar topik ini, kita akan faham hubungan antara money supply dan juga exchange rate. Dan dari itulah kita akan faham apa situasi yang berlaku sekarang di seluruh dunia ini, bagaimana kerajaan menggunakan ataupun mencari idea ataupun sedang melaksanakan polisi untuk mengawal dia punya inflation dengan mengubah exchange rate, dengan mengubah money supply. Bukan mengubah exchange rate, mengubah dia punya interest rate, mengubah dia punya money supply untuk mengawal ekonomi. So I think that's all about the point that I'm going to share with you. So I think we have a time for Q&A if we have the questions. So you can ask me in Malay or in English or even in Japanese. Okay. So now I put for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Dr. Normizan bin Bakar, for the lecture. It's very interesting about how to maintain the interest exchange rate, and so I would love to give 3 opportunity. The one session for 3 questions. Please raise your hand, or simply if you feel uncomfortable, you can also type your question in the chat box, and I will read the question for you, or Dr. Normizan will also could read and answer directly. So student, we have 53 student or 53 participants in this Zoom meeting, very vibrant, and I think all of students will be very excited with the topic. Okay, I also have my student here, Brother Khairul Fikri Mutakin. Yeah, and some of students from Malaysia and from Turkey. Yeah, we have international student, Dr. Normizan, also from Turkey and Malaysia, and from Malaysia. Yeah. From University Malaysia Terengganu, yeah, I guess, yeah. And from Turkey is from KTO Karata University, Turkey.
Okay.
Okay, Brother Khairul Fikri and or other brother and sister here. Maybe you have some question. Doctor, could we have slide or something? I only capture the material from my handphone. So is that do you have any materials to deliver to the student, or?
Oh, I can share this whiteboard with them later on. And actually, I can share some research the empirical research that explains the relations between money supply and the exchange rate. I think I have a paper for the exchange rate and money supply of Indonesia and Malaysia too, I think. So I can share with them later on.
Okay, doctor.
Okay.
So actually I have I have a question related to your topic about money supply. So some people frequently ask whether international finance or particularly international trade is that macroeconomics or microeconomics, because you deliver the topic about money supply that is very close with the macroeconomics topics.
Okay.
So what is your explanation about this?
Okay, thank you very much for this questions. I think most of people want to know the difference between micro and macroeconomics, and then the point that we call it as international macroeconomics or open macroeconomics. Okay, let me explain this point as follows. When we talk about this money supply and interest rate and exchange rate, it is a macroeconomy. Okay, and then when we plus this issue or this point with the exchange rate, then we call it as the international macroeconomics or open macroeconomics, because we discuss about the exchange rate. So that is the macroeconomic, and that's why in economics departments too we have international finance. International finance in economics department focus on this point, that if the macroeconomics with the exchange rate and the balance of payment. Okay, so that's why we call it as the macroeconomics. Now turns to the point, where is the microeconomics? Okay. So regarding the theory of international economics, when we say microeconomics, we refer to the discussions of import and export. There is theory about export and import. Okay, theory about the comparative advantage, the all sort of theory that explains why country export and import. Okay, and the basic theory or the more jargon point in international trade theory is that the comparative advantage so on. So simply we can imagine like this. When we talk about those about trade, there is export and import, that is a microeconomy. But when we talk about the balance of payment and exchange rate and the price level, or at the international economics point of view, there is balance of payment and exchange rate, and the finance, there is interest rate, that is macroeconomics. Okay, so to simplify my explanation is that when we talk about balance of payment, exchange rate, and interest rate at the international level, we call it as macroeconomic analysis. So that is my explanation.
Okay, doctor. Thank you very much.
Very
clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody? Usually your student is very active, doctor. Many questions at the end.
Actually, we have discussed this point a couple days ago. Okay. So they are busy with their quiz right now.
Okay,
just give
already.
them quizzes.
Okay, already comprehend all those
yes, using
issue,
this equation.
So,
Yeah. Mhm.
okay, maybe my student, Khairil
Okay.
Fikri, are you there? Or Nur Afini is their student, Nasuha. Okay. Okay, the last question maybe Dr. Mizan.
Okay.
I think Ilham Hafidi. Do you have any question? Other? Wen Lin? Yan Ching Lin? Ziha?
No,
From Ilham?
no, miss.
Okay, please. No. Oh, no. Okay. Khairil? Is there is my student here, Salsan? Okay, doctor,
Okay.
one more question. Actually, what is the challenge? Yeah, maintaining the foreign exchange rate. Maybe, for example, actually, what is the best regime of foreign exchange, or best regime of exchange rate in a country? Is that depend on the situation of the country, or you have any advice regarding the ideal foreign ideal exchange regime?
Okay.
Maybe, for example, Malaysian
yeah.
case. Yeah, thank you, doctor.
I cannot answer that question precisely, because if I can answer that one, I will be chosen as the governor of Bank Negara. Okay, but actually, theoretically, right now, what we have in the country, the monetary policy focus on the what they call it as the inflation targeted policy. There is they maintain or they impose all the policies under monetary policies to maintain the inflation rate in their country, or the targeted inflation rate. Okay, so that's what have been used in so far, and most countries in the world now use that policy. I think Indonesia also use the what we call it as inflation targeted policy, and similar to Malaysia. So that's why when we have the post-pandemic inflation problems, all countries change their interest rate, change their monetary policy to meet the or to depress the inflation rate, and that's why they include they adjust the interest rate to meet the point of their targeted inflation rate, and because of that, it affects the exchange rate. Okay? So we cannot just use the theory or the equations that I explained here today. So this is one of the basics idea of how we actually control the exchange rate. But there are a lot of theory or policy or point of view that we need to know. If you remember last year's when I gave the lecture, we learned about 4 approach in order to maintain or to control the exchange rate. There is what we call abstract approach, military approach, and so on. Okay, so I cannot give a simple idea or the best policy in order to control the exchange rate. But for me, honestly, when we have what we call it the free trade, and we choose what we call it as a float exchange rate, then we need to let market determine the exchange rate. Okay, if we don't have any what we call it as the attack on the exchange rate, there is speculation attack on the exchange rate, and our exchange rate does not drop strategically, then we don't need to intervene the exchange rate market or a forex market. Okay, so that is my idea or my opinion.
Okay, doctor, very diplomatic, diplomatic
Yeah.
answer. But it's okay. Very good insight, and thank you for the enlightenment, and your. I hope that your lecture will be fruitful. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for student, UMY, and also student in UUM. I'm very glad and very happy with these collaborations. I hope we can have the same collaboration next semester. And thank you, yeah, inshallah. Thank you very much for your coming, for your lecture, and for your enlightenment. And also, thank you very much for the student for attending this session. Okay, let's end up this session with hamdalah and the dua of kafaratul majlis. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And Dr. Dia, don't close these sessions yet, because I want to open QR code for attendance to my students.
Okay, yeah. Okay, please, for the student of UEM, you can checklist your attendance. Yeah. Okay, please do.
Yeah.
Mas Vicky, please give the time for Dr. Norizan.
So for my students, please scan this QR code, and then you can leave the meeting. So today is the 25. So there you go. So actually next week is our mid break, Dr. Dia here. So I want to say selamat bercuti to my students.
Okay.
Okay.
Selamat
And
bercuti
yeah.
for studying, eh? Cuti for
Yeah,
studying.
yeah.
For
Yes,
fun.
for just 1 week.
1 week. Okay.
Yeah. So inshallah we meet again.
Yeah. Have a nice break. Yeah.
Okay.
See you for the next semester.
Inshallah. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dokter. Sehat selalu.
All right.
Doctor.
Yeah.
We can scan since the QR code is blocked by the doctor. Yeah.
What?
We can't scan the QR code since the QR code is blocked by the Dr. Dia. The
really?
Figure.
Yeah. Dr. Dia? So now you can scan it. Boleh scan tak sekarang?
Dr. Yeah, now in the sharing section.
Okay. So you can scan now?
Can't.
Kan? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Dr. didn't share the screen.
Oh, right. Wait a minute.
All right.
So now? Okay. Sekarang boleh
Thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome.
Boleh.